British values.
This video is brought to you by Achievement Training and Skills, supporting training providers with funding and consultancy to raise standards in the hairdressing, barbering and beauty therapy apprenticeship delivery industry.
Who here has heard of British values? And you can put your hand up, put the thumbs up, type something in the box. Okay. Yeah, so we've got Alicia's put a couple of them down. So we've got mutual respect and tolerance. Equality is not it is part of British values, but it's not one of the titles. So the titles are mutual respect and tolerance, democracy, rule of law, and there's one more. Begins with an I. Individual liberty. Brilliant. Okay, so what we're going to do, we've actually got 3 days of talking about British values. And what I want to do today is I want to focus on democracy. Why do you think we have this term, British values? What do you think about that? And I'd use the text box for that, unless anybody feels brave enough to turn their to unmute themselves and talk. Do you think the term British values is a good term? Okay, so the question was, what do you think? Why do we have British values? So what do you think about British values as a term? Why do you think we have them? What do you think that they sort of bring to the country? Keeps people behaving correctly, yep. Freedom of speech, okay. Do you think that all countries share the same values that we do? No. Yeah, I think Phoebe summed it up quite nicely that there. So they allow us to create environments free from discrimination, intolerance and hate. And, you know, it's basically anybody who lives in Britain, anybody that lives in Britain, it's making sure that everybody is treated fairly, that you can have your say, that you're safe, that you get the right to choose, all of those kind of things. So anybody think of a country that might have a different kind of value system? China, yeah? Tell me about China, Reds, because actually China are on my list to talk about. What do you think is different in Germany, Ella? When Hitler was ruling, yes, that was very, very different. I'm talking about now in modern times. So yeah, China are a dictatorship. And I'm going to stop you there, Charlotte, because I'm going to talk about that a little bit further on. Yeah, North Korea, definitely. They're in the news a lot, aren't they? They're also on my list to talk about. So we're going to move on to talking about democracy. Who here can tell me what democracy means? Because when I go out to centres and I say to people, tell me about British values, the one that people tell me usually is democracy. So how would you describe democracy? Yeah, so when you're 18, you're entitled to vote who you want to be in Parliament, listening to the needs of everybody until the vast majority come to a decision. I think that puts it nice and simple. So I got a few definitions from Google yesterday. So a state governed under a system of democracies, control of an organisation or group controlled by the majority of its members. Okay, so for us, we are a democratic state country, and we are able to choose when we're 18 plus who we want to be in government. And we'll talk about the age thing in a bit. Who can tell me the main political parties? Who can tell me who's in Parliament now? Yeah, so Conservative, Labour, Green Party, Lib Dems. UKIP aren't actually a party anymore. They were, but they are not now. Yeah, Liberal Democrats. Any others you can think of? So the main ones I've got: Conservatives, Labour, the Green Party, which is now called the Green Party of England and Wales, Liberal Democrats, Scottish National Party, the DUP, which is the Democratic Union Party, Sinn Féin. So the DUP and Sinn Féin are Irish parties, and then Plaid Cymru, which is Wales. And those parties, as in the Irish ones, the Welsh ones, the Scottish ones, they will have members of Parliament running for election in their areas. It's highly unlikely in Norwich, where I live, that I would have a Plaid Cymru member of Parliament running for election. Okay, so it's a lot of it is based on where you live. Okay, so who could tell me who the Prime Minister is today? I'd expect everybody to know this because, yeah, Bojo, Boris Johnson. Don't think he deserved a kiss at the end of that, Abby. Yeah, so Boris Johnson. Okay, he is the current leader of the Conservative Party, and he is the person that is making the decisions on what is happening in the government at the moment. So he doesn't do that alone. He has advisors, and he also has a team of people. So essentially, he's the manager, and then he has a team of people. Okay, so those people are called a cabinet, and they are members of Parliament, and they have specific job roles where they are in charge of a certain area, and they have to take the lead on it, make decisions, but ultimately they report to Boris Johnson, and he is the person that is overall in charge. So it's very much like employment that we're in. So, you know, for me, I work for Positive Approach ATS, and my Boris Johnson is Stuart, and I am a member of the cabinet. And it is much the same in your employment as well. So your boss, they are the Prime Minister of your salon, and you are the cabinet member. So you're making everything work, and they're there. Yeah, your Boris Johnson is Tanya. So you have those people, they're in charge, and you're the people, you're making your own decisions, but ultimately you kind of, you report to that one person. So some of the roles of the cabinet ministers will be, so there's the Minister of Education, really important for us because they make decisions about apprenticeships. They make decisions about when you're at school. They make decisions about if you know, anything really that the government funds. You'll have the Minister of Transport. Actually, I don't think they're called ministers. I think they're called secretary. That's a word I can't say. Secretary. So you get the health secretary, which is Matt Hancock. So he makes the decisions around what happens around the NHS. Lots of things at the moment, obviously with COVID. You know, then you've got like the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, who is making all the decisions about furlough and that kind of thing. So to keep it democratic, because if just those people were in place and they made all of the decisions and there was no discussion, I think argument is the wrong word, but there's no challenge. So that wouldn't be a democracy then? Because it would just be the Conservatives saying, this is what we're doing, although we had elected them. It would be that they are making the decisions. So in return, Labour have a shadow cabinet. And for every of those job roles in the Conservative Party, there'll be a shadow member in the Labour Party. Okay. And they also, when there's new decisions to be made, new laws, new regulations, new things that they want to push through Parliament, they get together and they take a vote and they go with the majority. So quite often, if whatever party is in power, if they have some crazy idea of something that they want to push through Parliament and the other party doesn't agree with it, then it could potentially be voted out, because it is a democracy. It's not just the Conservatives making all the decisions. It is a joint thing. Okay. And actually, depending on this, we could go on for ages with this, and I will probably talk about this a bit more. Depending on who is elected in your area, you could still have a Liberal Democrat, a Green member of Parliament that goes in and makes those votes too. And also you will find that it's not like everybody in the Conservative Party will vote for one thing. There's some really good websites out there where you can check what MPs voted for different things that were going through Parliament. So anybody can think of something recently that's been in the news to do with MPs making a decision and people didn't agree with it. Yes, Charlotte Yaxley, Marcus Rashford. So lots of people, including the MP from my area, voted against it. And I believe that the Conservatives have turned around now and they are going to actually provide free school meals in holidays. I'm 95% sure that I saw that somewhere the other day. So yes, it just goes to show that actually, they have a say, there's a vote, but still if lots of people and the country, people wanted, no matter what your views are, people don't want children to go hungry. So that is something that has been massive in the news recently. Okay, so we know that Boris is the leader of the Conservative Party. Does anybody know who the leader of the Labour Party is? Almost, Alicia. It's Keir. Yeah, Keir Starmer. So Keir Starmer was voted in, it must have been it was after the last election. So yeah, it must have been early this year. He took over from Jeremy Corbyn. And basically when they vote in new leaders of parties, the members of that party, so the general public, so if you supported Labour and you were a paid member of the Labour Party, you would then be able to vote for who you wanted to lead that party. And there would be a selection of people. Okay, so it would be, and people would put themselves forward for it, and then they'd go through a selection process, and then you'd be left with who is left. And then as a paid member of that party, Labour, Conservative, whoever, you would then be able to vote for who you wanted to lead it. So this person's name is in the news a lot. So the Scottish Nationalist Party, the SNP, who's the leader of them? And I would say, other than Boris and Keir, this person's name is in the news probably the most. Yep, Nicola Sturgeon. Okay. So she is, the leader of the SNP in Scotland. So Scotland and actually Wales and Northern Ireland, they all have their own kind of like government system. So you'll know that now Scotland are not in a national lockdown. They're in a 5-tier system. So depending on what tier you're in, tier 1 being the lowest risk and tier 5 being the highest, depending on what tier you're in, depends on what kind of restrictions you have. Wales also not in a lockdown anymore. They had the 2-week firebreaker. I can't remember what it was called, but they had theirs and that finished about a week ago. And Northern Ireland, again, have a different kind of system. So the two other kind of mainish parties, I guess, are Liberal Democrats. I doubt anybody knows who is the leader of those, but I'll throw it out there just in case. So anybody know who the leader of the Lib Dems is? I had to Google this one this morning. Yeah, Ed what? Ed Davey. Okay, and he came into that position in August 2020. They had a lady before. She was called Jo Swanson. And she was very anti-Brexit and wanted the UK to stay in the EU. But she had some interesting policies, I guess. And, you know, what in my lifetime, and I am 38, it's always been between pretty much Conservatives and Labour. They are the two kind of main parties. Okay, so how do you think, well, before that, you have to be 18 to vote. What do you think of that? Do you think it should be younger? Do you think it's right? If you are 18, do you vote? Yeah, you think it should be younger? Did you do much about those people who are sort of 16 to 18 ages? Did you do very much on politics and different parties when you were at school? Do you think that now you've left school and with everything that's going on, you know, when I was your age, and I'm just going to give you an example, I was not interested in politics at all in the slightest. I didn't vote until I was about 20, well, mid-20s. I just had no interest. I was of the opinion that, well, it doesn't affect me. It just doesn't matter. But I think what you can see now that it's in the news all the time is that actually what happens, the government's made the decision for us. So it is really important to be educated, and actually it does really affect us. So I would agree with the people that said it should be younger. I think that, and this is just my opinion, I think that, yeah, there should be more education at school and voting should be allowed from 16, in my opinion. How do you think you would choose? Because this is an interesting one, because it's your values, your beliefs. What do you think of the downsides? Red, so how would you choose who you're going to vote for? Yeah, research. Yes, Jessie, people do lie to you, because what have we seen all over the internet with the American election? Fake news, and you know, it happens with you know, any kind of election from the beginning of time. It's called propaganda, which I'm sure that you heard, you know, you would have learnt about at school when it came to, like, you know, basically it's countries, parties saying bad things against the other or people that support them. Okay, so Charlotte, yes, read the manifestos. Who knows, who's heard of the word manifesto? And you can just put your hand up. No, yeah. Sorry for the beeping, I've got emails coming through. Yeah, so we've got a few hands up. So basically, each party will have a manifesto, and in their manifesto, they will have all of their policies and their ideas. So it's how they want to run the country. And luckily, living in the age that we live in, when it comes round to the time of elections, there's actually lots of websites where it will give you multiple choice answers, and you click in which ones you agree with, and it will say which of what party your views align with, and then you can read the manifesto and see if you agree with it. I think it's safe to say that there may be points in all of them that you agree with, but it's kind of the majority that you feel suits you. I would never recommend just thinking, oh, well, I vote for these people because my mum did, or my dad did, or my friend did. It has to be, it's a personal choice. It's something that, is really important that you do research if you're going to vote, because it makes such a big impact. I think it's really important. I think, there's been some massive decisions made over the last 5 or 6 years. And I do think young people are more into politics than they ever used to be. And I think it's, it's something that you should be thinking about. I know that it's really difficult and sometimes difficult to understand. So, and I'm going to start sharing my screen with you now. Okay, so I'm sure everybody has Instagram. Now, this is an Instagram site, and they explain politics really simply. They are not Labour based, Conservative based. It just explains everything. They could get it wrong. I'm not saying that they are, an official anything. They just, for me, explain things. Sorry, my dogs are causing chaos. They are just a good place to go and have a look. So, you've got COVID update. So no GCSEs, AS or A levels in Wales next summer, bits about vaccines. And if we scroll back, could be here a long time, I guess. So we've got Wales updates, COVID, blah, blah, blah. Lots of different things. Talking about MP salary rises, unemployment figures. So these are really important. These are really interesting things to look at. And these are just a really small kind of snippet. Okay. And actually interesting. I mean, I'm quite into politics now that I'm old. American politics, so different to ours, so confusing. And they do actually have an American one as well, which was useful for me over the American one, because I didn't really understand it at all. So I'm going to stop the share now. I thought I'd show you that because, I mean, it's not, I'd never say take everything for it for fact, but it's just quite a good place where you can get a quick overview of different things. And they update it all the time, so it's really current. So let's get back to democracy. I know not everybody in this group is female, but high percentages. Women have not been able to vote as long as men. How long do you think that women have been able to vote for? 20 years, 30 years? Okay. So women have been able to vote since 1918. Since Emily Pankhurst ran in front of a racehorse. So yeah, what was Emily Pankhurst part of? What was that group of women called? Suffragettes. Oh yeah, we had Demi say that as well. Yeah, so the suffragettes. So it was 1918. that women got the right to vote. However, it wasn't all women. It was women over the age of 30, and it was women who met a certain criteria. So it was like upper class women. Working class women would not have been able to vote. You know, it would have been women of a certain kind of criteria. So actually, only 2/3 of the population of women met that criteria. So there's still a massive amount of women that could not vote. And I think it was about 8.5 million could vote. So I guess there would have been about 12 and a half, 13 in total. So yeah, probably like 4 million women that still couldn't vote. Then in 1928, there was a new act that came in, and it was called the Equal Franchise Act. And then all women over 21 could vote. Okay, and that brought it in line with men. So from 1928, all women, all men over the age of 21 could vote. So we're getting closer to equality with voting there, aren't we? And then, so the difference there is 21 to vote. Now you have to be 18. So in 1969, there was another law, regulation, policy brought in, and it lowered the age of voting down to 18, what it is today. You do never know, Jessie. You never know. I think that maybe one day it will be. In the there was an election in Scotland, and I believe it was the one where they went for Scottish independence, and they lowered the age of voting down to 16 for that one election, which to me, I think is good, because it's going to affect those younger people, you know, more than older people, because the younger people are going to be in it for longer. So that made sense, but it is back up to 18 for normal elections. If we're talking about democracy, and democracy being equal, fair, people having the choice, the opposite of democracy, what kind of state do you think that would be? Isolated, kind of. So you don't have a say. Yeah. Can anyone think of the word? Communist is not quite the word I was going to go for. Dictatorship, yes. So a dictatorship is where it is ruled by one person, and that is it. So they are in charge, they make all the rules, it's just what they want, and that's kind of it. So an example of that, and some people said it earlier, is China. So China are very, very strict. They have a president, and he makes all the rules, and he is very strict on internet and like information going out of China and information coming into China. So there's lots of, you know, people in China can't get on social media sites. TikTok was banned. There's been lots of things in the news recently about Huawei, the phone company. I think that's how you say it. And, you know, that like trying to take other people's information, but they're very, Abby, where you said isolated, China are quite isolated because they don't have this kind of open democratic choice that, like, say, England does. Anybody know anything else about China? And I'm just Googling something that Red's put earlier. Okay, so one child policy. In November, and this is the latest update, in November 2013, following the third plenum of the 18th century committee of the CPC, China announced a decision to relax the one-child policy. Under the new policy, families could have 2 children if one parent, rather than both parents, was an only child. So it's kind of still there, but there's a slight relaxation if one of the parents is an only child. So very interesting. Have we got any questions on today? Do you feel like that's helped you to understand democracy and voting a little bit more? Good. Who here, when they're 18, or if they are 18, is going to go and find out and vote? Excellent, Abby. I'd be interested, the people that don't think they're going to vote, I'd be interested to know why. I'm not going to ask you to do it now, but maybe have a chat with your tutors, and I'll speak to the tutors, just because I'm interested to know why you wouldn't. Not that it's a right or wrong thing, it's your decision to do what you want. Any other questions? I'm going to take that as a no. Okay, well, have a lovely Thursday. Almost said Wednesday again. Today is my Friday, so I'm not working tomorrow, but I will see you all again on Monday morning. Monday morning, we're going to be talking about rule of law and individual liberty. Okay, so have a good weekend and keep safe, and I'll see you all soon.
For more videos, make sure to click subscribe.